You'd never guess what kind of skin this was. The king declared that whoever identified it correctly would win the hand of his beloved daughter, the princess. The first man stepped up to the massive hide, sized it up, touched it, and even plucked a hair from it. Feeling somewhat confident, he announced it was pigskin. The king shook his head. Wrong. The second man looked more professional. He pulled out a magnifying glass and examined the hide carefully. The princess grew tense, terrified he might uncover her secret. The man finally said, "It's snakeskin." The princess immediately glanced at her father, and only when the king said no did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. One by one, more people came to study the hide, but none guessed correctly. Then a rugged, ugly wild man walked up. Having lived his life in the wilderness, he only needed a sniff before declaring, "It's fleaskin." The king froze in shock. He turned to look at the princess, but she couldn't accept it. Heartbroken, she ran up to the rooftop, ready to end her life rather than submit to such a marriage. But the king didn't stop her. Instead, he shouted that if he went back on his word, he would lose all credibility before the entire kingdom. How could a man who broke promises rule his people? That was when the princess realized her father cared more about saving face than about her life. Resistance was pointless. She had no choice but to surrender and leave with the wild man. They trekked through forests and crossed deep canyons, traveling for days in the wind and rain, dragged up towering cliffs that pierced the clouds. They finally reached the wild man's cave. Inside was nothing but gnawed animal bones, scattered on the ground. The wild man ripped a leg of meat from a carcass and shoved it at her. But the princess only backed away to the cliff's edge, gazing desperately at the distant castle that was once her home. The wild man couldn't understand. He had given her the best he had. Why wasn't she happy? In his twisted logic, he grabbed her, threw her onto a stone bed, and took her by force. One day, a farmer's wife came collecting herbs along the cliffside. The princess cried out for help, but a wide gap yawned between them. The farmer's wife was helpless until she brought back her son, a circus tightrope walker. With his acrobatic skill, he managed to rescue the princess, but the wild man soon noticed and came chasing down the rope. Just as he was about to catch them, the boy pulled out a knife and slashed the rope, sending the wild man tumbling down the cliff. The group fled in a carriage, but to their horror, the wild man wasn't dead. Following their scent, he came raging after them. With a single swing of his fists, he killed the farmer's wife and her younger son. The mother, clutching her eldest boy and the princess, ran for her life and hid behind a mound of earth. When it seemed they would surely be discovered, the eldest son took a swig of liquor and blew out a stream of fire. The wild man staggered, but was only slightly burned. He quickly grabbed the boy. Realizing her whole family would be slaughtered, the mother charged out, sacrificing herself to buy the princess a chance to escape. The princess ran for her life, stumbling into a cave. The wild man soon followed. Just as he was about to seize her, she suddenly softened, leaning tenderly against him. The wild man, completely bewitched, let down his guard. As he prepared to carry her home, the princess swiftly pulled a dagger from her robes and plunged it into his heart. The wild man collapsed, dead at last. Back at the castle, the king was gravely ill, longing for his daughter every day. When news arrived that she had returned, he staggered out to see her, only to find her covered in blood, like she had